Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Layer by Layer, the show about 3D printing and our place inside the industry. Today we're going to talk about Tangled Filament, as per usual, as well as several bankruptcies on the horizon, a big acquisition for $100 million, more than $100 million, as well as talking about jobs, work, and the 4th of July. Hope you all had a good one. But before that, let's go ahead and pay all the bills. This episode is brought to you by TangledFilament.com. Tangled Filament is our attempt to drive the cost of filament down to $10 per spool. Right now we started at 22, we got down to 15, and we're moving on down. Right now you can get a hold of any filament you want, so long as it's black PLA, but we are working on getting that expanded, so make sure that you sign up over on the website or subscribe to the channel to get updates when we release new colors. And with that, let's get on with the show. So, first of all, and by the way, it is summer, and I am hungry, so I'm going to eat an ice cream bar while I do this, and I'm not going to smack into the mic at all while I do it. Even though this is a podcast, this is like a terrible mistake, but I'm going to do it anyway. NanoDimension, to acquire shares of Desktop Metal, deal to be worth as little as $135 million. This is a really good story because... Desktop Metal has been acquired by NanoDimension. NanoDimension has $1.2 billion of cash laying around. Desktop Metal is burning $50 or $60 million a quarter. So it's a match made in heaven. They got money, we don't have any. So they got money, I like to spend money. So that's kind of the situation there. This acquisition is kind of, everybody's saying, this is the obvious outcome because NanoDimension has tried to work with 3D Systems and with Stratasys, and Desktop Metal tried to combine with all those guys. And there's all this drama for the last year to where Desktop Metal is taking a big haircut with this. Like they were trading at like 150 when this deal came down. So NanoDimension is getting a deal as far as the public valuation of Desktop Metal. So it is interesting in that context. But there you go. There's the consolidation. NanoDimension and Desktop Metal both do highly technical sorts of processes. And this is a good justification of Desktop Metal, who has always kind of been on the edge of feasibility of some of their products. But they essentially together create another 3D printing conglomerate that can go against 3D Systems and Stratasys. But what is interesting now is who's going to survive, because there's not enough room in this industry for all three of them. And the other two are already losing money. NanoDimension has always been profitable. Desktop Metal has never been profitable. So we will see. All right. Velo 3D. They have done a 1 for 35 reverse stock split. The reason for this is because they have dropped below $1. Velo 3D right now is trading for about $27 million, which is quite small for a public company. And they've been taking it in the teeth along with everybody else. So this reverse stock split, any stock on the public market that's not a penny stock has to trade at above $1 for a consistent period of time. Otherwise, they get delisted. And this is essentially what they're doing. To get back above $1, they did the reverse stock split. This also follows into Shapeways declaring bankruptcy this week on July 3rd. Right now, they're still on the market at $1.5 million. A month ago, they were at like 15, and a couple months before that, they were at like 20. But Shapeways is taking it in the teeth. Shapeways does what we do. They did print on demand for people and then prototyping and trying to get into production at the end. But like 4 weeks ago, the founders sold off the software assets to a company that they owned. So that's basically raiding the best stuff before everybody else comes through, and getting it separated from the entity before you go bankrupt. And then those things become assets that are then claimable by the people you owe money to. I think Shapeways had enough cash around to where I'm not sure how much stuff they'll lose from it all. I think they had enough stuff to pay all the bills. But Shapeways is gone, and Shapeways started in 2012. They're one of the old salts of the dream of 3D printing. So it's somewhat of an omen of what is in store for us over here at Slant 3D, but the difference between us and what Shapeways always did was just simply the fact that we had scale first, and since we didn't use really expensive machines that cost $500,000 a pop, were able to scale and we didn't have the capital outlay that was necessary to them. Shapeways also just had a flippin' long lead time. And you cannot do print on demand if the lead time is 3 weeks. It just doesn't work. So, oh well, it is what it was. They also got really unfocused at the end. They were trying to do molding and machining and all this other stuff to where they weren't harping on the things that were working. They were looking for other things. And by the way, this is a mistake that everybody makes, including us, all the time. It's very easy to try to go chase a shiny thing rather than fix the thing that you've got. And bluntly, here at Slant 3D, even right now, we're kind of going through this conversation of like, are we doing too much stuff? Are each one of our products good and getting better? Or are we spreading ourselves thin to try to pay the bills this month? Or do we just need to take it in the teeth for a little while and grow stuff? There's kind of a culling coming along that. And that's all I'll say publicly about the whole situation. But I shouldn't say, that sounds intimidating, but we're going to reprioritize projects. That sounds like there's like a layoff or something. There's not. We're going to be potentially killing particular product groups and that kind of thing. Won't be the API, won't be anything critical, but any like side projects or like research projects that we're working on for the most part. And then corralling and refocusing other ones. Anyhow, okay, so Tangled update. So with Tangled, here we go. Tangled update. First of all, if any of you guys do not know, our PLA should be printed at a higher temperature. We are fixing this. PLA historically has always been 180 to 220. We have updated the stickers on ours on all spools going forward, and here's a formal announcement to all of you, of 200 to 235. The reason we have done this is because since our PLA is pure virgin PLA, it's not regrind or reused or anything else. Since it's virgin, it has a higher temp than what most people use, especially for black, because black is generally stuff that has been melted and then is melted again. And each time you melt plastic, the next time around it melts at a lower temperature because you're effectively just chewing it up. You're digesting it multiple times. But since our stuff is virgin, the print temp is higher. And since it's a normal PLA and not a high-speed PLA, people are putting it in high-speed machines at 180 degrees, which is the fastest speed at the lowest heat, and it's causing jams. So if we want to kind of hack that system, so we're saying the temperatures are higher to make sure that they always work well. If you're a pro and want to print slower and make sure all your cooling settings there to get some kind of performance out of it at a lower temperature, go ahead and do that. But for user experience, we're updating the stickers and the temp recommendations for the material. So it'll be, recommended temperature is 200 to 235, which is higher for a lot of PLAs. But since it's pure stuff, you have to use a higher temp. And it's not regrind or any other kind of crap that, quite frankly, most everybody does. Also, PLA Plus, we're not ever going to do PLA Plus. We've talked about this on the show before, but PLA Plus is not a thing that's real. PLA Plus was originally meant to be a brand name for a version of PLA that was a higher heat. It was Pro PLA. And people took Pro PLA and then they decided to start saying PLA Plus about the same stuff. And then some people threw in additives and then other people called it, that's just their brand name to be up with all the rest of the boys. So it's a useless term. We will never, ever make PLA Plus. Ever. There is no PLA Plus. Because whatever we do make, when we start focusing really heavily on like material improvements and releasing unique and more useful materials through Tangled, we will not call it PLA Plus. We will be slightly original and call it something more informative and precise. Okay. With this all though, Tangled testing is coming along. We actually just expanded our content team in the last couple of weeks, so we are able to start producing more videos. And Tangled testing is one of the benefactors of that. So we should start having more videos coming out over there on that channel. So if you haven't gone over and subscribed, I recommend you do. They're going to be fun. We're going to do one on carbon fiber here fairly early. It should be a good one. Alrighty then. I know this one. I understand it. We're going to live with it. I do apologize to you guys. I shouldn't have done this, but is what it is. It's an ice cream cone. I don't know. Be jealous, I suppose. It's Friday after July 4th. We had these left over from the celebration, and I'm enjoying them now because I haven't had lunch. So, alrighty, software update. So, we mentioned or alluded to this last week. A Shopify app is coming. We will have it done in the next single-digit weeks, low single-digit weeks. It will allow you to do everything that the Etsy does inside of Shopify, and it will actually have a number of improvements. The building of that app has also necessitated and facilitated expansions of the API and a number of upgrades to the API around shipment tracking, notifications, and certain parts of billing. But yes, the Shopify will be coming soon, and it's necessitating a bunch of the API improvements. It should be very useful to a lot of folks. We will prop up a sign-up sheet landing page for it here pretty soon for any of the early beta testers who want to see the public beta. But yes, it'll be coming out here, and of course we will have it all scaled up and ready for Christmas. Okay. Last announcement. Hiring. We've never done this before, but we're trying it out. We're making a job announcement up here. We are looking for an industrial designer who has skills in Grasshopper, Autodesk 360, and preferably Blender, if you happen to know. Blender's gravy, but the other ones are pretty necessary. You will be working, quite frankly, on both items for this channel and for clients. So you will be creating models varying from electrical boxes up to lamps and that kind of thing. It is not restricted to somebody specifically in industrial design, but you must have a portfolio of products created. They can be either made for yourself or made for a client or in a previous job or something along those lines. But you have to have shown artistic and engineering ability, which is generally where industrial design comes in. You understand how a thing works, but also how to make it beautiful and interesting and have some taste. So we are hiring for that position right now. If you're real fast, it might be open. We've got a few people who have already reached out about it. So you can email us at info@slant3d.com and send over your resume and your portfolio. If you send a message that says, "Hello, I'm interested in this job," you will not get a response. You have to provide information. This is your application. Resume, portfolio, those, and then the job you're applying for. We are also hiring for an admin. This is inside the Boise area, and it is local. That one will not be a remote position. So if you happen to be a Boise resident and interested in that type of a position, we can do it for you. Okay. Now, going on to discussion topic. July 4th and quitting. So, quitting. Let's do quitting first. There is a stigma in society that for some reason forces people to hold on to jobs that they shouldn't, and has companies attempt to retain people that they shouldn't. Because there's a really big stigma about firing people. And firing is a harsh word and a scary thing. No one wants to be fired. Which is not why you say things in softwares like let go. But in a perfect world where the person is doing their best and an organization is doing its best, and the work simply isn't getting done, it is absolutely necessary for one of those two parties to either quit or let that person go. Because if someone is working at an organization and they're not being successful, it is unfair of the organization to try to keep them there. Because you're taking away human life and human potential. Someone who can do a good job someplace should be in the place where they can do a good job. And if you are in a position where you are not excited to go into work, where it's just a drudgery of like, I have to go into work again today. If you're in an office space type of situation, you need to quit and get a different job. Now, I fully understand that this is sort of a preppy sort of perspective, but it's not. Because if you quit a job that is miserable, number one, there are 10 million open jobs right now that will hire anybody who shows up on time. And they will pay very well. Anything from bricklayer to whatever. They don't require degrees or anything else. They require that you might have to move to get close to them, and they might require that you be uncomfortable, but they're available. So quitting a job does not mean you're going to starve. You can go get a job. Anyone can get a job if you're willing to be flexible, especially if you're in the United States. Like, suck it up. There is plenty of work to be done, and people will pay you if you show up on time, do the work that needs to be done, and do your best. You will always have a job. Those are so simple, and yet people just don't do them. If you wander in 5 minutes late, you've just become the less helpful person because you made everybody else wait for you. That's a side topic. Anyhow, shouldn't be scared of being unemployed. Knowing that the net is there, that there is always a job if you're willing to move and make some sacrifices, you're not going to starve on the streets if you get fired or if you quit your job. So you should. If your job is not satisfying or you're not being productive there, I'm not necessarily passionate. Passion comes from being good at something. But if you can't see yourself in success at that job or don't want to be at that company, you need to quit. Similarly, if a company sees an employee who is not at the highest level or not matching with the rest of the company or something like that, they should be fired because they're bringing down the rest of the company. And they're unhappy. So it is like the job of the boss to like tear off the Band-Aid. And now that sounds like an excuse for firing people, and I suppose it is, but presuming that the boss is interested in their employees and interested in the success of the company, firing somebody who's just not working out is not a offense to that person. It's simply a statement of like, hey, you're not thriving here. You're not in fertile ground for the type of plant that you are. You need to go find something else that you can be really happy at and really good at. Therefore, I'm firing you. That is so necessary of bosses to get wrapped around because many bosses and managers are like, this person's just not doing the job, but maybe we can train them and get them turned around and all the rest of this kind of stuff, which is a necessary conversation because you hired them. It's your responsibility to take care of your team. But excuse me, if someone just can't get it there, keeping them there, sticking them in a gilded cage of a paycheck and tolerating it is a disservice to them and to the company. So you need to let those people move on so they can get to some place where they can be super successful. Otherwise, you're being a selfish manager or a really bad manager. Now, of course, there's a firing because somebody wanders in and slaps somebody or whatever else it was. There's all those obvious things of like, you're just not doing your job or you're a terrible person. Those are all reasons to fire people. But there are these softer reasons of firing people where it's just like, we messed up in the interview and this is not a job that you're going to be happy in. So we have to let you go so that you can live your life better somewhere else. That is one of the considerations of a good manager. Are people truly performant in that spot because they're happy and they're productive? And then people themselves, don't be scared of quitting because if you're not happy in your job, life is really short. So go find something you can be better at. If you want a paycheck, again, go sit out in the hot sun or something like that. And you can make a bigger paycheck than plugging into the office each day if you hate your job. So that's kind of that discussion. That's the discussion. It should not be gauche or bad to quit, or to be fired. Because if you want to quit, you should. If somebody wants to quit and they're still working at the organization, that's poison to the organization and poison to the person. It makes your life miserable. It makes the life of everybody else around you miserable. And if you need to be fired because you don't want to be there and nobody else wants to be there and you're not fired, that's unfair to the employee who should be fired and to everybody else around them because they're poison there. This is a very simple thing. You don't want miserable people coming into work because it creates worse quality work and creates worse human life quality. So yeah, I feel like I bounced around that a bunch, but ultimately being fired is not the worst thing in the world. It's not a personal statement or anything like that about your quality or worth as a human. It's just a mismatch because a company is an organization and a team. And if it doesn't fit inside the team, that's fine. You can go find another team. There's a lot of teams to be a part of. There's plenty of safety nets, again, inside the United States to where you have, you can definitely go get a job and you can try lots of things. Literally, if once you get fired, you can be signed up and drive an Uber in about 20 minutes and that'll pay your bills. So the fear of it should not be as grand as many people think it is. And it also should not be such an inconvenience to fire people because bosses get scared of firing people for protecting their team and that kind of thing. But if it's like, it's just not working out, you need to move on with life, and everybody understood that, it would be easier. Also, with that understanding, candor and communication would improve. If you are miserable in your job and you don't bring it up to your manager, that's also an issue. Often an issue with culture because the manager should be approachable enough to where you can share that info. And this is something I struggle with, quite frankly. I'm an engineer. I'm terrible at reading people. But having folks just tell you, like, hey, Gabe, I don't like that. I don't want to do that. We literally, in our one-on-ones, we have a question like, what do you want to change? What do you want to do more of? What do you want to do less of? And then this is trying to get at that, what is making you miserable, so we can do less of that and make your job better. So yeah. As to July 4th, as I said earlier, this is Friday, July 5th. We're working. Team is in-house. Everybody owed us the Friday. Some traded out for Thursday, some worked on Friday, some worked on Thursday itself, and that way they get the longer weekend. The reason we do this at Slant 3D is because, number one, we're a startup, which means that we need all the time we can to get done what we can get done so that we survive and so that we grow. The other part of it, in relation to July 4th, is that July 4th is the marking of the Declaration of Independence of our country from the British, and defining us as this is what we are, this is what we do, by golly, America, here we are now. I dislike the celebration of that chutzpah by taking a day off. That seems like a day when we should just power down and do something there. Especially, and this always comes to me with like the work ethic kind of a thing. China, we're, as a country continuing to exist and set an example, on our day of celebration, we take the day off. And then we take off weekends and all the rest of it. But China, they work 7 days, 9 hours a day, it's 7, 9, 12 or something, whatever their schedule is. They're working 70, 80-hour weeks every week as part of the normal job. And we're taking a day off on our country celebration, and that's fine. But then to turn it into 2 days and the weekend and just turn it into 5 days of hoorah, because here we are, so let's all take a break and give up being who we are. That seems like a competitive mistake. That seems like celebrating winning, even though you're not winning. And as soon as you get that level of complacency, somebody else laps you. And again, yeah, for me, it's always comparing against the other ones who are working harder than us. Because there's no other way to both achieve things large and difficult and remain in the lead than to just put in more time than somebody else. Because if they have the same amount of smart people and we have the same amount of smart people, then it's just about how many hours those smart people put in. And yeah, you take breaks and all the rest of that kind of stuff. You don't burn yourself out. But you also don't take 5-day weekends. Our country is something that is important and can only be sustained through continuous work. A lot of countries allow stuff to rot until it all falls down. It is our job, in order to keep the United States as productive and grand and interesting as it is, this grand experiment, is to continue to polish the gears and not take off long periods of time so that the machine can rest more. It is only through continuous action and continuous effort that a thing can sustain. It's very easy to build a thing, but you can build it with duct tape and it looks pretty and then it falls down tomorrow, and you can set up a tower of cards, which is very impressive and shows your skill of creating a thing, and then somebody closes the door and it all falls down. It takes maintenance and intention and effort to maintain a society and a country and a government system. So on this 4th, don't necessarily just lay back with the beer. It is great to appreciate what the founders did and what this country has been. But as part of it, it's probably a good idea to also just go out and polish a little bit of the rust off. So for our part, we're working on Friday. We had Thursday, we recognized the time we looked at the fireworks, and we have a weekend coming up again. But you can't stop when you've won. Just because because this race doesn't have a finish line. You have to show up every day, do what needs to be done. Otherwise, you'll lose it all. Have a great day, everybody.